Good morning. Welcome to the Business Elevated podcast. I'm Kori Ann Edwards. I'm the Managing Director of Operations at the Governor's Office of Economic Development, also known as GOED. Today, I'm with Dane Ishihara, the Program Manager over our grant programs that we'll be talking to you about today. And he's going to be talking about Shop in Utah, Safe in Utah, and ComRent. Dane, thank you for joining me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well considering the circumstances, and I'm excited to discuss the program so we can assist the businesses in Utah.
Thank you. So the Utah legislature in the 5th special session that was just this past June passed House Bill 5010, which created several programs available to Utah businesses. And Dane and I will be talking to you about those today. So the first one that we have is Shop in Utah. And just for those of you who are doing a podcast and a webinar, so I'm going to pull up the slides for that we can walk through, and then we'll walk the audience through those for the others. Dane, can you see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, great. So the first program is Shop in Utah, and it is a $25 million program. To qualify for this grant, businesses must offer a discount or other offers with an estimated value to their consumers, and we'll go into the details about that. The exciting thing about this program is it's designed for our small businesses, so 75% of the grant funds must go to Utah small businesses. In this situation, a Utah small business is designed to be a company with 250 or fewer full-time employees. And again, we'll talk more about that. The second one we're calling Safe in Utah. It is a $5 million program that provides grants to businesses to improve workplace safety for workers and customers during the COVID pandemic through measures such as PPE purchases, workplace redesign, signage, and technology solutions that allow for distance working. This is also a small business set aside with the same definitions. This one's a little interesting. You can either put forward receipts where you've already spent the money and get reimbursement for that, or if you still need to spend the money to improve your workspace and allow for social distancing, you can get up to $100 per full-time equivalent. And again, we'll talk more about that one as well. And then the final one is already an active program. We've done a couple podcasts on this before, but it went through some revamping in the 5th special session and is an improved program offering greater opportunities for our Utah businesses. And it is our Commercial Rental Assistance Program, also known as ComRent. It is a $40 million program, and as of today still has about $30 million left available to our Utah businesses. And this provides rental relief to Utah businesses that have lost revenue as a result of COVID-19. And grant awards is based on revenue percentage losses and actual rent expenses. So Dane will deep dive each of these for you. So Dane, do you want to go ahead and start with Shop in Utah?
Yeah, thanks, Kori Ann. And this is important to note, the Shop in Utah program, the application process will open at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time on July 27th. And as Kori Ann mentioned, the Shop in Utah grant program is designed for businesses to offer an incentive to entice their customers, and the incentive amount must equal at aggregate 50% of the grant award. So easier said is if a recipient receives a $10,000 grant, $5,000 of that grant award must go towards the customer incentive. And there are two ways to calculate the grant award. It's capped at $50,000 per eligible entity, or the actual business entity's revenue decline. So the revenue decline is calculated by, or for a business entity that began operating before July 1st, 2019, the sum of revenue from March through June 2019 compared to the sum of revenue for March through June 2020, or for a business entity that began operating on or after July 1st, 2019, the business entity's revenue for February 2020 multiplied by 4 compared to the sum of revenue for March through June 2020. And then also, as Kori Ann mentioned, 75% of the awards must go to businesses with less than 250 full-time equivalent employees. Okay, and then we'll run through some eligibility questions that an applicant will have to respond to. So the questions are, Did your business experience a revenue decline due to the public emergency related to COVID-19? Was your business in operation on March 1st, 2020? Has your business received funding from the COVID-19 Cultural Assistance Grant Program? Does your business have 250 or fewer employees? Does your business have employees that are physically located in Utah? And if awarded a grant, do you agree to provide a financial incentive that equals or exceeds 50% of the award or grant amount award? And then also, do you acknowledge that your business is required to keep records of the discounted goods and or services, and the records may be subject to audit? And then also an explanation of how the use of funds will benefit the state economy. Okay, there will also be some documentation required for the Shop in Utah program, which is a completed and signed W-9, a profit and loss statement for March through June 2019 or February 2020, based on if your company was operating before July 1st, 2019. So that's how we'll verify the revenue loss. And then we'll also need the profit and loss for March through June 2020, and then a copy of the plan, including a budget for offering the financial incentive to customers. And in the budget, we also need to have an understanding of the timeline that the funds will be dispersed related to the incentive program. And then here's also a crucial part of this program is any business that receives CARES Act money has to have spent that money prior to December 30th, 2020. So if awarded, the business entity has to provide the incentive program prior to December 30th, 2020, but the activity can take place up through June 30th of 2021. I think, Kori Ann, do you want to maybe add some additional information in that area?
Yes, thank you so much, Dane. So we kind of went through all the technical pieces of this grant, and really this is a little bit more of a complicated one than a lot that have been offered before. So just a really kind of quick recap on what this Shop in Utah grant means is a business is eligible up to $50,000, and to determine eligibility that we're going to look at March through July revenues in 2019, or sorry, March through June revenues and compare in 2019 and compare them through March through June revenues in 2020. And that loss difference will determine the eligibility. If you are a company that was not in operations before July 1st and therefore do not have that revenue comparison for 2019, we will take your February 2020 revenue projections, times them by 4 months, and then compare them to the 4 months of March through June to determine the loss. So again, you'll be eligible for a grant amount up to $50,000. With that money, let's say you're eligible for $50,000. With that money, you have to agree to provide an incentive or discount to your consumer. And 50% of that money, or if you were eligible for $50,000, $25,000 of that can go to your operating expenses and to help you with, as a business with your loss. And then the other $25,000 would need to go to the incentive that you're offering to your customers. So hope that clarifies that a little bit. A good example of this would be if you're an outfitter, maybe you're a fly fishing guide and you offer a buy one, get one free. Book a float trip and you get to bring a friend for free, so to speak. So the outfitter would offer that benefit, and then they would advertise for it, and the booking and the payment for that benefit or that incentive would need to be on or before December 30th of 2020, even though maybe the consumer doesn't redeem it until sometime next year on or before June 30th. So still a little complicated, but hopefully that gives you some clarifications. Dane, anything I missed on that?
No, I think that was a great summary.
Okay. All right, so we will now go into SAFE in Utah. And Dane, can you talk to us a little bit about that program?
Yeah, thanks, Kori Ann. The important date for the SAFE in Utah program is the application process will open up at 9 a.m. on July 20th, 2020. And then this program is designed for businesses to improve workplace safety for their workers and customers through supporting purchases of PPE, workplace redesign, signage, and technology solutions that allow for distance working. This program is capped at $50,000 per eligible applicant as well. And how the calculation for this program is determined is the lesser of the actual expenses for the COVID-19 safety equipment, or $100 per full-time employee. And again, 75% of the awards must go to small businesses of 250 full-time equivalent employees or less. And part of this application process is just outlining what equipment was bought and describing to the office how the public health and safety guidelines and safety protocols will be followed. So the documentation requirements for Safe in Utah will be the complete and signed W-9, and then also evidence of the expenses that have occurred or the anticipated cost of the expenses. And here are the program eligibility questions. Did your business experience a revenue decline due to the public emergency related to COVID-19? Was your business in operation on March 1st, 2020? Does your business have 250 or fewer full-time employees? Does your business have employees that are physically located in Utah? Has your business incurred COVID-19 expenses? Or if awarded a grant, do you agree that you will purchase COVID-19 related expenses? And then do you acknowledge that your business may be subject to audit? So this program is much more straightforward than the Shop in Utah program. We're looking at actual expenses or anticipated expenses, and then also the number of employees.
Thanks, Dane. A couple questions for both the Shop in Utah and the Safe in Utah. How do I determine whether or not I have 250 or fewer full-time employees? What's the timeline that I need to compare that to in filling out the application?
That's a great question, and it does apply to both programs. So we're looking at the time of application, the number of full-time employees at being 250 or less to determine if the business qualifies as a small business under the requirement. But it's at time of application. We're also looking at full-time equivalent employees, means someone that's working 40 hours or more for that business is what we're looking at.
So my part-time employees or my 1099s or things like that, they will not count towards my 250 full-time employees. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. Those individuals would not count towards the full-time employee number.
Thank you. Also, both for Shop in Utah and Safe in Utah, are these targeted towards a certain industry or a certain type of business in Utah, or can anyone apply?
Basically, any business entity can apply, and including nonprofits and sole proprietors as well.
Great. So all of you dentists or professional services out there to offer a discount or need it, that's good. For you retailers, you hospitality and leisures, I really like how these programs are designed for pretty much any business in Utah that meets these eligibility requirements can apply for this and get this aid. So very exciting opportunity for our Utah businesses. Thank you. The next program that we talked about is currently open. So just to recap, Shop in Utah starts and opens July 27th at 9 a.m. And we'll talk to you about where to go for those applications. Safe in Utah opens this Monday, July 20th at 9 a.m. Both of those are Mountain Time. And then the third program that we'll talk to you about today is the Commercial Rental Assistance Program, ComRent, and it is currently open now. So Dane, can you talk to us a little bit? We've had it open before. I know the legislative session made some changes to it. So if you could just give us a recap as to what the program currently looks like today and maybe how that compared to the previous program.
Yeah. Thanks, Kori Ann. So the purpose behind the ComRent program is to provide rental relief to grants in the form of grants to Utah small businesses who have lost revenue due to measures taken to minimize the public's exposure to COVID-19. And to be eligible for the program, the business must have a current lease on commercial property in the state of Utah, claim Utah as their principal place of business, have fewer than 100 full-time employees, demonstrate at least a 30% loss of gross monthly revenue after March 1st, 2020, and they could not have received funds from the COVID-19 Agricultural Operations Grant Program. And so an overview of the documentation related to the ComRent program is, again, a signed W-9, a current lease or rental agreement, documentation of the most recent lease rental payment, profit loss statement for the 4-week period of revenue loss baseline, and a profit and loss statement for the 4-week period of revenue loss. So for those times of the revenue loss, we're looking at any time period, 4-week time period before March 1st, 2020, and then any time period, 4-week time period after March 1st, 2020. And so as Kori Kori Ann mentioned, we restructured the program after working with stakeholders in the legislature. So the original revenue lost adjustments were 50 and 70%. Those were adjusted to 30 and 45%. There was also a PPP award adjustment that was removed from the program. The program award was increased from 2 months of rent, or 2 months of rent from 1 single month's rent. We eliminated a lot of the documentation requirements that were unnecessary. Also, the maximum award amount was raised to $15,000 from $10,000. And for entities that have multiple locations, that maximum award actually goes up to $30,000 with $5,000 per location. And then the requirement used to be 100 employees, and that was raised to 100 full-time employees.
That's really great. I know several companies were eligible for the initial program, and so they went in and applied and got a check for that. Now that we've got these new changes and different losses, for example, maybe they got their reduction because they received a PPP award from the federal government, and that's now taken away in this requirement. So Dane, for those that did receive early ComRent money, what happens now with these changes?
So with the changes, we've recalculated the award amount and issued checks to those companies that were awarded the first round. So they should be made whole under the new requirements and should have received a check by now, or within the next week or so, they should be receiving a check.
So that's super great. Always great to just get a check in the mail, right? Or an additional check in the mail. So for those of you that did that, that's great that you got in at the early stages of it. Again, it's a $40 million program, and so far about 30 million has gone out the door still. So still lots of money here. As Dane had said, the percentage of loss has been reduced. It's now 30 and 45% versus the 50 and 70. So your losses don't need to be as extreme as before. So I encourage you to relook at that. Also before, if you got the PPP money, instead of being eligible for 10,000, you were only eligible for 5. That's been removed. So that is no longer something that we need to look at under the program. Instead of 1 month's rent, it's now 2 months rent. So much bigger opportunity there. And instead of the max amount being 10,000, it's now 15,000. And if you're a company, an entity with multiple locations across the state, the max award has been increased to 30,000 with a cap of 5,000 per location per month. So a single location could get $10,000 for the 2 months. So a lot of good opportunities there. So how do I apply is kind of the next question. And the most important thing to get out of this podcast is to go to business.utah.gov/coronavirus. So I'll repeat that again, business.utah.gov/coronavirus. And there's a banner right there that will talk about all these programs. It will give you all these details that we just talked about what the eligibility is, what the documentation that you need to submit. And then at the bottom of that piece, there will be a Apply Now button that you will see. And when the applications go live, you'll see that active and you can go in and start applying for that. So right now, the ComRent application is active. You can go in today and start applying. Again, just a reminder, the Safe in Utah, which is the social distancing PPE purchases, that will go live Monday, July 20th at 9 a.m. And then the Shop in Utah, which is the consumer incentive benefit package, that will go live July 27th at 9 a.m. Dane, will you talk to us a little bit about the application process that a business will go through when they click the Apply Now button?
Yeah, and this is applicable to all 3 programs we've discussed. So the applications are accepted on a first come, first served basis until funds are exhausted. And that first come, first served basis, it's important to note that that's calculated on a complete application. And I'll walk through the process, so that'll make a little bit more sense in a minute. But the first step is to set up a user account if you've not already applied for a Go Ahead incentive. Returning users can use the same account that's already been set up. And then if you're going through the setting up an account process, you'll receive an email to proceed with the full application. You'll fill in the application, upload the required documentation. PDF format is preferred when you submit your application. And once the application is submitted, it'll undergo a review for eligibility and award amount. and the application will be approved or rejected. If approved, an award email will be sent out and a check will be issued within 48 hours, usually within the same day. And if rejected, an email is sent. The application is identified as a draft with an explanation of the missing information and documentation. So if you get the reject email, you'll want to respond quickly with the documentation that was required, because that puts you back into the queue of the first come, first serve that I was discussing a little bit ago.
So super great. So just to recap that, this money is first come, first serve, so you don't want to delay if you're interested in applying for this. Also, if you have applied for other applications like this that GoEd has been offering during the pandemic, and you've already got an account, you can go ahead and you don't have to request a new account. You can go ahead and use that same user account number and password that you had already set up. So that will save you a step there. If you haven't got a user account, go in and get that, and you'll get that back to you in an email form. I know a lot of people sometimes do go to their junk mail, so it comes to you within 24 hours. So if you haven't seen anything, always keep checking your junk mail account to make sure that it's not sitting in there waiting for you to respond. So if you've already got a ComRent money and you're now applying for SHOP in Utah or SAFE in Utah, you can use that same account. Or if you applied for the original Utah Leads Together bridge loan, you've got an account there. So various things where you may already have an account. If not, go ahead and set one up. And again, as Dane said, super important to upload all of your documentation. We'll go through next some common mistakes. But what I really love about this program and what's super excited is once you've deemed eligible, a check goes into the mail to you within 48 hours. So you really get this money quickly without a lot of delays. So I appreciate everything the state is doing to get that money to you as quick as possible. Dane, if you would you mind going through maybe some common application mistakes that we've typically seen people have?
Yeah, and this is helpful for our side and the applicants as well. So one of the common mistakes is failure just to provide the required documentation. And if a document is not available, attach something stating why you could not access that document. So if it's a profit and loss for a revenue calculation, a lease agreement for the ComRent program, at least document why you're not attaching that required information. And then also the document format. Please name your documents appropriately so we can find what we're looking for. The maximum size is 5 megabytes for each document. Make sure your documents are not password protected. And then also PDF is the preferred format. We can also accept Excel or Word. Any Mac-based formats are usually not acceptable and will not come through. And then also make sure the W-9 that you're submitting is signed with the correct address. That's the address that's the same as the company in the application. Know your business structure when you're applying, or if you have DBAs. We have a lot of applicants that use business entities interchangeably, so we can't follow the trail through the documentation when we're reviewing the application. Then verify your gross revenue baseline and gross revenue during the period of loss when you're submitting your application. We're seeing a lot of mistakes made on gross revenue where net income, net revenue are being used, so we can adjust those calculations, but double check what you're submitting. Then also carefully read the questions as they may determine your eligibility. So don't just go through and mark yes, 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 or no, no, no on each application question. Really read them in detail and answer the questions adequately. And then also, I wanted to reiterate what Kori Ann had said. Check your junk mail if we're sending communication or email back and forth. They can end up in that location. And then if you've applied for multiple grant programs with GoEd, you may need to refresh or delete your cookies within your browser so the application will pop back up and then apply now button will show. So I think that highlights some of the mistakes, Kori Ann.
Great. No, those are good things. I know a lot of companies, they go by a DBA maybe, and so they'll go in and fill out their application with their DBA name, but all of their paperwork that are uploaded goes through a more formal name or a parent entity or something. And so the application name doesn't match the documents. And then therefore we have to go back and ask more questions and get more additional information from you. So just make sure your story through your application matches the whole way. We've got a lot of requirements from the CARES money that we need to follow to make sure that we're in line with the federal guidelines through the CARES Act, as well as state guidelines to make sure that you are a Utah company, that you're an eligible company, that we can see that you are a business. We want to make sure that this money stays in Utah. So we're really checking that to make sure that that we meet those needs and get that money to our awesome Utah businesses. So appreciate you working with us to make it a quick process. If there is missing data, or we do need to go back to you with questions, as Dane had said, since this is a first come first serve basis, if we have to go back and you have to resubmit data, then that puts you back in the line where you resubmit. So you kind of lose your place in line. So you want to make sure that everything's uploaded correctly. And just kind of in summary, again, I wanted to just recap the dates again. ComRent is open right now. Safe in Utah opens Monday, July 20th at 9 a.m. and Shop in Utah opens Monday, July 27th at 9 a.m. So the next 2 Mondays, those programs will come online. You can find all the information that we just talked about in this at business.utah.gov/coronavirus. And within each of those sections, as you find the as you find the information, then you'll see that all this information is there. There's FAQs, kind of that will guide you through these facts that we've talked about that you can ask. There's also emails that you can email a technical question or a direct question that's applicable to your business. So try to provide you with as much information as we can to help you successful in this program. So again, 25 million in Shop in Utah, 5 million in Safe in Utah that's available, and 30 million still left for ComRent. There are caps there and how much you will qualify, but a good pot of money for our Utah businesses, and wish you well in going after that. So that concludes our information today, and I just want to thank you so much for listening to GoEd's Business Elevated podcasts and information. And Dane, special thanks and shout out to you to all the great work that you're doing and all the really good information that you provided us today. And with that, we wish all our Utah businesses well, and hope to see you successful, and good luck as we continue to work on Utah's economy, work to make sure that we're safe and healthy, and we can all get through this together. So thanks again. Thanks, Dane.
Thank you.